Let's go to the bottom of page 2 is just introducing the fact that what you're going to see next is the present stem middle passive participle, okay? So this is the middle passive participle using the present stem. Which stem is that? How would you know which stem it is? It's your lexical form. It's also the first principal part in your principal parts list. Okay, that's the present stem. Now, what are we going to see when we see the participle here? Well, the middle passive morpheme is menomene, right? Menomene. And so what we're going to notice is that the declension pattern for menomene is what? It's 2-1-2. You see the omicron here? Stems ending with omicron are second declension. Stems with alpha or eta are first declension. Consonantal stems are third declension. So we're dealing here with a 2-1-2 pattern. What do we have? We have our present stem lu. What's our connecting vowel? It's going to be omicron because menomene is the thing that we're attaching to the connecting vowel. And since that's a mu, we want an omicron before it, so lua menas. And then otherwise, it's just all the same cast of characters for second and first declension case endings that you already know. Now, how would I translate a participle like luomenas? Well, luone is to be translated how? Loosing. Luomenas, if it's a passive meaning for the middle passive participle, it would be something like being loosed. Being loosed. Being loosed, I escaped from the penitentiary. There's nothing autobiographical about that, by the way, in case you were wondering. All right, so let's read the form, shall we? Repeat after me. Luomenos, luamenu, luameno, and luamenon. So those are the masculine forms. Masculine and singular. Here's the masculine plural forms, everybody. Luamenoi, luamenon, luamenois, and luamenos. Luamenus. All right, feminine forms are going to follow that first declension feminine pattern. Luamene, luamenes, luamene, luamenane. And then luamenai, luamenon, luamenais, and luamenas. And then on the neuter side, luamenon, luamenu, luameno, luamenon, luamena, luamenon, luamenois, and luamena. All right. So again, we're going to notice the same sort of consistent patterns that we saw in the other, the active forms, and that is that my masculine and neuter forms are identical in which cases? Genitive and dative. So notice that correspondence. And also the neuter forms are identical in the nominative and accusative. Okay, that's true on the plural side as well. So do keep that in mind. Now, let's go on to the next page. This is section 4 on the handout. Mounce mentions the 6 forms to memorize, and it's important for you to really think about this and commit it to memory. Since some of the participles adopt a third declension pattern, and remember, many times when you see a third declension noun, the real stem of the noun is obscured because that masculine or feminine sigma case ending in the nominative singular, not sigma, that sigma interacts often with the consonant that ends the stem, and you end up getting something wacky. And so you don't often know what the real stem is until you see the genitive singular. And so it would do you well to memorize the genitive singular form of the participles as well as the nominative singular forms. And if you know those both, then you'll know what the real stem is. And if you know the genitive, you'll not only know the real stem, but you'll also know which declension pattern is being followed. So just look at the active participle endings now. So what we have here are the connecting vowel, the participle morpheme, and then any case ending. So the nominative singular for masculine follows the third declension, so it's going to end with own in the nominative and ontos for the genitive, and these are singular. The feminine form is following first declension, usa, uses. So noticing here that, remember, the first declension nominative singular feminine case ending is no ending at all. So there's actually a zero ending for the nominative. Sigma is the case ending for the genitive singular. The alpha has switched to eta here. Did you see that in your first declension nouns way back 1,000 years ago? Yes, you did. What was our pattern? It was the noun doxa. What does doxa do in the genitive? It becomes doxase. Okay, alpha becomes eta in that case. All right, and then the nominative is following third declension pattern, on and ontos. So in these two nominative singular forms in the masculine and neuter, you don't really see the full stem, okay? You only get it when you get to the genitive and you take the genitive and drop it and you see what's left. That's what you're adding the case endings to, really, okay? So those are the 6 forms to memorize for the active, for the middle passive, the masculine, feminine forms. This is a mistake. That should be 2, 1, 2 here. And those will look like this. Your connecting vowel and then your menos, or menomene. Okay, so amenos, amenu, amene, amenes, amenon, and amenu. Notice the sigma for the masculine second declension, nu for the neuter. Think logos versus ergon, right? Logos, ergon. Logos has an omicron stem. Ergon also has an omicron stem, but in their lexical forms, which is the nominative singular, we have sigmas versus nous. All right? Okay, so let's look at point number 5 here. Basically, all of this is summarizing the Mounce chapter, all right? Simplifying in some ways. Let's talk about the present stem active participle of a me, the verb to be. And so a translation for that participle would be being. The wonderful, wonderful news about this is that you already know this form. What is the form of the participle? It's the identical backside of the participles that we've just learned for the active. So go back to luo. What do we have? We have luon, luontas, luonti, luonta. And basically the participle for a me is the backside, on, ontas, onti, onta. Usa, uses, use, usan, and so forth, okay? So you already know these. The only difference is, since these forms of a me and the participle are not connected to the back of anything, they start with a vowel, and therefore what do you need for words that start with a vowel? You need a breathing mark. And in most of these cases, we're going to get an accent mark too. Okay? So let's just recite these together. Ready? Own, ontas, onti, onta, and then the plural, ontis, ontone, and next page, usi, and ontas. Back to the feminine forms, everybody. Usa, uses, use, usan, usai, uson, and usais, usas. And then the neuter forms, on, ontas, onti, on, onta, ontone, usi, onta. And let me just remind you that on here does look a lot like another form of something that you've seen, but it's actually this, han. Does anybody remember what han is? Yes, relative pronoun. And this is the accusative singular masculine form of it. Has, he, ha are the relative pronouns in the nominative singular. Has, he, ha. And has becomes han in the accusative masculine singular. Okay? But what kind of breathing mark is that? That's a rough breathing mark. Remember, the relative pronouns will have that rough breathing mark. Okay? This has smooth all the way through. Smooth, smooth, smooth. Okay. Let me give you some examples here of some sentences using the participle. Okay? So look at the first one. I have on didaskalos. Say that with me. On didaskalos. Ego agapo. Tous mathetas mu. All right. Let's translate this. What's own mean? Being. Being didaskalos. Being teacher. Being, I can add the English indefinite article here, right? Being a teacher. Ego agapo. I love. Tous mathetas mu. My students. My disciples. I love my students. Aww. Isn't that nice? Fingers crossed. No, they're not. Love my students. Okay. Now, look at this next one. I have usameter. Say that with me. Usameter. Ego agapo. Ta tekna mu. What's usa mean? Being. Good. Mater. A mother. Ego. I love. Ta tekna mu. My children. Okay, good. Now, can I ask you to look at the difference between own and usa? What gender is own? That's masculine. What gender is usa? It's feminine. Those are different genders. Why did I translate being the same? What's that? Right, it's indicating the gender of something. In English, do my participles mark gender? No. Eating could be applied to any gendered thing, right? Okay, good. So it doesn't matter in English what the gender is. I'm going to translate it the same way, even though Greek is going to give me more specific grammatical information here. Okay, now, what case is own over here? It is nominative. If you go back to your chart, you'll see own is the nominative masculine singular. What case is usa? It is also nominative. Now, why is own nominative and masculine? Well, who is it that is being a teacher? It's I. Okay, so in the core clause, my pronoun ego is conceptually masculine and singular, and it is the nominative case subject of agapo, right? And so whatever the subject conceptually of the participle is, whoever that participle is describing, here in this case ego, it's going to match that noun's case, gender, and number. All right? So that's why this is nominative and masculine. If you look over here at usameter ego agapo, who is it that's being a mother? It's still ego, isn't it? But what can you tell me about this ego? It's feminine, singular, right? And nominative. So that's why this is nominative, feminine, and singular, by the way. Huh? All of these. But even though ego is the same pronoun, ego can stand for a masculine or a feminine I. And that's why I get to make the choice with the participle here. Yes? The didaskalos and the mater? Yeah. Not really. Not really. It's really the form of own here and usa, which are nominative. So when I get to the nominative ego, I already know what gender it is by the participle that was used.
So for the first one, you could have used usa, right? And kept the exact same translation out of context. Right?
Over here, I would have probably used a feminine form of teacher.
Okay.
Right? So maybe didaskale. Now, but there are some forms that have an identical masculine and feminine form. So then that wouldn't help me at all, right? I wouldn't know for sure, but the participle's gender would.
The second one could have only been Usa, right? Since it's
Right, because
mother.
it's a woman, a mother. All right.
What'd you say? 20
All right.
Call me traditional.
Yes. Okay. So some final odds and ends here, okay? How do we negate participles? Well, let's remind ourselves, how do we negate indicative verb forms like what we've been doing from chapter 16 through 25? What do we put in front of a noun? Oo. Oo or ook, right? Ook is just an alternate form for oo. And that's what we use for negating indicative mood forms. Once we're outside the indicative mood, and this will include other moods like the subjunctive mood or the imperative mood, and once we're outside of the indicative mood, meaning non-finite verb forms like infinitives and participles, we are going to negate using the negative particle may instead of oo. So you've learned may. That was one of your vocab words fairly early in the book, okay? So this isn't new, entirely new to you. So we're going to use may, though. So look at luon over here. This is our first example. How would I translate luon? It's active, isn't it? So loosing, good. And may luon is not loosing. Exactly. See how easy this is? Not loosing. Over here, we have a similar sentence to what we just did a minute ago, but it's may usa mater. What does that mean? Yes, not being a mother. What? Yes, I hate your children. Yes, that's mean, isn't it? So, me usa mater ego miso ta teknasu. Now, usa's still feminine singular because the ego here is feminine singular. Although I could imagine a man saying that too, right? A man could say, not being a mother, I hate your children.
So how do we know that, like, because ego is just I.
Mm-hmm.
So if that sentence, how would that sentence be different than if it was a male?
Yeah, so if it were a man saying it, it would be me own mater ego miso ta teknasu. So I would have to change the usa back to the masculine form. Okay?
Wasn't there a question like or a workbook question like 2 chapters ago where we used may to negate
Probably.
one of the indicatives?
Yeah.
There was a
Maybe it was with ume, where you have both together for a very strong negation.
we used may to negate something quite negative,
Mhm.
right?
I think we have seen May negate.
Yeah, you've seen may before. That's why he's introduced it to you. So I'm not telling you that may is completely new to you. I'm just saying now we're outside of the indicative mood, so when we negate things, we're going to be using may. All right? Now, last couple things here. Personal endings. The participle is not a finite verb, so it's not marked for person. It's not marked for mood. When we talk about the participle, we're technically not talking about a mood. It's not a mood, all right? It's just a verbal form. So because it's not a finite verb form, though, it is not going to have personal endings. There are no personal endings associated with the participle. Technically, then, there are no subjects because personal endings always mark what? They mark the subject. And if there's no personal endings, there can't technically be a subject, at least not a grammatical subject. In the discourse, though, there will be a conceptual subject. There will be some entity in the sentence, in the clause, where your participle must match something's case, gender, and number. And whatever that conceptual subject of the participle is, that thing's case, gender, number will then determine the case, gender, number of the participle being used for it. Okay, so that's what CGN is, case, gender, number. So let's just take a look at these last 2 examples again. I have me usa mater ego miso ta teknasu. Ego's case gender number is dictating the case gender number of usa. Ego conceptually is feminine, singular, nominative here because it's the subject of miso. I hate. It's nominative. It's one I, and it happens to be a feminine I. Over here, me own pater, not being a father, ego miso ta teknasu, I hate your children. Ego is also determining the case gender number here, but in this situation, the ego is masculine singular and nominative. Okay? You see how that works? All right. Very good. There are going to be cases in the New Testament where the actual subject personal pronoun isn't going to be there. And you know how your verbs don't need a subject pronoun, do they? The inflectional ending, the personal ending, is sufficient to establish the subject. So it is possible for you to see a sentence, well, not this sentence, but a sentence like this. Me usa meter miso ta teknasu. And you would still translate it the same way. Not being a mother, I hate your children. Okay? And the ego is implied, not explicit, but that's what I'm talking about up here, right? Whether the subject is explicit or implied, it doesn't matter. The subject, explicit or implied, is going to, whatever its case gender number would be or would have been, will dictate the case gender number of the participle. Okay? All right.